Hello and welcome back. We continue our seminar with Sahar Bohavs. She will be presenting the results from the 3 workshops now. Sahar has been a member of Center for PINS, and she has she gained her master's degree from the Peace program here in Vasa. So let's welcome Sahar.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much once again for coming. Today I will be presenting the handbook on building a capacity to deal with discrimination, which will be published before the end of this year. And it's going to be quite an elaborated presentation, but I will try to be as quick and concise in each idea as possible. And of course, we will be having a discussion during the Q&A session after the coffee break. So, the cover of the handbook would look like this, and the table of content would be as follows. First of all, we are going to introduce the handbook, in which we will first define the key concept of social integration. Then we will show a glimpse and give an idea about the diverse population in Swedish-speaking Österbotten. And then we will present the project of embracing otherness to stop discrimination and all its implementation phases. And then second, we will once again remind what do we mean by discrimination. And third, we will dive deeply into the subject and list all the aspects of societal discrimination that has been discussed during the first and second workshop, talk about all the discussed problems and the suggested solutions. And then fourth, we will do the same in terms of institutional discrimination. And in the end, we are going to conclude, to sum up the findings, and to, of course, give acknowledgements to our partners and sponsors. So, social integration is, of course, a key concept in our project. Its aim is to foster the acceptance of cultural diversity, equality, and mutual tolerance. And it is a dynamic and structured process that fosters dialogue and positive, healthy human relationships. And social integration does aim to bring together people from various cultural, ethnic, and religious backgrounds while they get to keep their identity and at the same time have full access to all areas in life, in society. And that, of course, helps to fight segregation as well. So, to give you an idea about the population in Österbotten region, it is estimated that there is a little bit more than 180,000 inhabitants in the region. And as you can see from this chart, the majority of the residents in Österbotten region are native Swedish speakers, with a number of 49 to 50% of the population. And in the second position comes the native Finnish speakers with a number of 43%, and then lastly comes other languages, and they represent 7% of the population in the region. And within these other languages, the most spoken ones, of course, besides Finnish and Swedish, are Arabic, Vietnamese, Russian, Bosnian, Estonian, English, Somalian, Farsi, Albanian, and other minority languages. So the project of embracing otherness to stop discrimination has been a whole year project that first started with 3 workshops. The first workshop was about identifying the general aspects of discrimination in the region. What does residents in Österbotten region think discrimination is? And the second workshop was about identifying the societal aspects of discrimination. There has been discussions and then suggestions to tackle these issues. And then the third workshop was about institutional discrimination. We've discussed these problems once again, and we brainstormed solutions to it. And the average number of participants in each workshop was around 14 participants in each one. And the participants came from all various backgrounds. Now, of course, we cannot really say exactly where they come from, but we can say for sure that they came from almost all continents, and Finnish people were there as well. The second step is, of course, this final seminar, and its aim is to present the results of these workshops, to discuss the handbook, and to, of course, receive feedback and potential suggestions on how to improve the content. And then the last step is the handbook, which we will be discussing today and which will be published before the end of this year. So regarding the outcomes of the whole project, the first main outcome is to talk about the state of play of discrimination in the Österbotten region, to brainstorm solutions and to develop action plans for best practices. The second outcome is to develop a network in the region for transdisciplinary activities in the field of minorities and their well-being. The third outcome is to identify means to share knowledge about relevant place-based policy and practice intervention in various contexts. The fourth outcome is to create a platform to share expertise in the field of minorities and particularly in the field of discrimination and social integration. And then the last outcome is to research how increased multiculturalism could be beneficial for our societies. So, of course, Professor Emmanuel has brilliantly talked about discrimination, but before we navigate the waters of discrimination, it's very useful to just do a reminder. So discrimination is an intolerated behavior towards other people from various cultural, ethnic, and religious backgrounds, and they are being discriminated with various facts: ethnicity, religion, gender, language, country of origin, disability, or sexual orientation. And discrimination has been proven to be the strongest factor affecting the psychological well-being of foreigners and immigrants. So now we are going to dive deeply into the subject of societal discrimination. So during the first and second workshop, we have identified roughly 9 main problems due to societal discrimination. The first one is the foreigners' expectations versus reality, meaning what foreigners expect before they come to Finland and what they find on the ground once they're here. The second is different aspects of harassment and aggression. The third is prejudice among nationals, for example, Swedish-speaking Finns versus Finnish-speaking Finns. Fourth, prejudice towards foreigners, discrimination against Finnish people who are supporting foreigners to display positive attitudes towards them. 6, language barrier that foreigners face here in Finland. 7, identity issues that foreigners suffer from in their hosting community. 8, unequal treatment towards people with disabilities, and then in the end, moral issues of expressing tolerance and intolerance. So I'm going to talk about each one of these issues as concisely as possible. So the first one is, as I said, foreigners' expectation and reality, meaning that foreigners, before they come to Finland, they have certain expectations, and that is due to the image of Finland at the international level. Finland is a developed country. It does display images of openness and acceptance toward cultural diversity. And that is due to, of course, its international academic programs and international trainees that are mainly attractive to foreign students and to the foreign labor force. But foreigners, when they do come to Finland and they face day-to-day challenges, they feel like the reality is quite different for the reasons I will mention later. So second, aspects of harassment and aggression. Unfortunately, there are aspects of physical and verbal aggression towards foreigners from people of various age groups. And also, it seems that cyber violence has become an issue targeting some multicultural associations working in favor of the integration of foreigners. And in some cases, it has been mentioned in the workshops that some managers of these NGOs were personally threatened, which of course leads to feelings of constant anxiety and sometimes fear for their own life. And of course, all these harassments and abuse from the majority to the minorities leads to some feelings of shame and constant low self-esteem in society, which of course hinders their social integration in Finland. Third, prejudice among nationals. Of course, the concept of prejudice is not only reserved to foreigners, it also concerns national groups between themselves. So during the workshop, We have heard, and it has been reported, that sometimes some Swedish-speaking Finns feel discriminated by other Finnish-speaking Finns. And it also has been reported that sometimes some people feel like it's sometimes challenging for Finnish-speaking Finns and Swedish-speaking Finns to live together. And in some specific examples, it has been said that some Finnish-speaking children are socialized to be careful of some other groups, such as Russian-speaking groups or Swedish-speaking groups, among others. And some even warn them of potential dangerous situations that might come with this socialization. Fourth, prejudice towards foreigners. There are, of course, many assumptions towards foreigners due to their cultural background, in terms of their behavior, learning abilities, studies, and work. And there are also many assumptions that some foreigners would not be honest and would sometimes steal in public spaces, in for example, public swimming pools or public saunas. And of course, this lack of knowledge and lack of awareness does create misunderstanding between the foreigners and the majority, and which of course is based purely on biases. Fifth, discrimination against Finnish people who display positive attitudes towards foreigners. We also have heard during the workshops that some Finnish people feel discriminated by other Finnish people once they marry a foreigner. And there are also negative attitudes towards Finnish people who support foreigners, which of course leads to tensions among the in-groups, among Finnish people themselves, and the out-groups, among Finnish people and foreigners. In terms of language barrier, of course, one of the biggest problems that foreigners might face when they come to a new environment is language issues, and sometimes it can create some problems in some social situations or misunderstandings in their work tasks. And of course, many other foreigners have stated that they feel discriminated on the basis of language. They feel discriminated because they are not native speakers in local languages, or do not speak them perfectly, or just because of using English as their day-to-day main language. And also, some other Finnish people have talked about the fact that they feel sometimes discriminated and unequally treated in some public spaces. For example, if a group goes to a restaurant and the staff assume that they do not speak the local language, they would just give them the worst treatment, like give them the worst table, for example. And 7, identity issues in the hosting community. Some foreigners do face issues of identity once they come from a certain environment to this new Finnish environment, and they do experience a challenge to have a sense of belonging in their new community. And in some cases, some foreigners, for example, foreigners who are coming from war zones or just countries with conflict history or harsh economic circumstances, are still affected by this background, they still carry this sentiment with them in their new environment. And then the unequal treatment towards people with disabilities. And we have heard that many individuals with disabilities feel like they do not get the same treatment as their peers in their environment. And many of them have stated that they feel left out and not needed while they want to contribute. And of course, one of the biggest problems in this point is that there are many assumptions that from the majority to the people with disabilities, that they know when they would need help and when they need help, which is not always accurate. And 9, moral issues of expressed intolerance and intolerance. Many people have reported that sometimes they feel quite shy or not a bit discouraged to share their opinion because they are afraid of being labeled a racist. As an example, when a person sees that some other person displayed some kind of behavior, and for example, that person happened to be, of a certain cultural background, then they feel a bit discouraged to say, if I say something, will I be labeled as a racist? And of course, there is also negative attitudes towards people who are highly tolerant towards people from a certain group, and some people of that group happens to commit some crimes or some misdemeanors. in their environment. So one of the most recurrent questions that people might think or might ask is that to which extent should people be tolerant in their environments? What exactly should be tolerated and what exactly should be taken measures against it? Now we will mention the solutions. During the first two workshops, we have mainly discussed 7 main solutions to that. So community integration plans, peace education as a tool to fight discrimination, showcasing foreigners' life in Finland to the Finnish public, strengthening the bond of common identity between various groups, facilitating intercultural communication, self-advancement of minorities in Finland, and more decision-making powers to people with disabilities or people with different abilities. So in terms of community integration plans, now of course Finland already has many integration plans, but it has been reported that these integration plans are mainly directed to refugees, and all the attention goes to refugees and the rest feel left out of these integration plans. So the solution would be to actually give an equal treatment and give more community integration plans both for immigrants and for refugees on the same equal level. And of course, integration doesn't only concern foreign groups, it concerns groups, national groups between themselves. So, for example, one suggestion would be that Finnish-speaking children should go to the daycare together with Swedish-speaking children for a better national integration. Second, peace education. Now, it is extremely important to mainstream the idea of peace education and implementing it in the Finnish educational system. And peace education would actually entail to raise global citizens, for them to learn about other cultures, empathy, human rights, and how to respect other individuals regardless of their cultural, ethnic, or religious background. And of course, the values of peace education needs to be strongly embedded at an early age. It should be embedded in terms of socialization practices and child rearing. And the people who are mostly responsible for that are, of course, the families and the education environment in schools. And on a side note, it would be extremely important to actually show or teach that there is different levels of discrimination, and if we understand these different levels, then we would efficiently tackle them. Third, showcasing foreigners' life in Finland to the public. Now, during the workshops, I think we have heard some fun suggestions, like creating project that could help the foreigners reach their stories to the Finnish public. For example, foreigners could share stories from their own perspective of their life in Finland. For example, talk about their expectations, their realities, their positive experiences, their negative experiences, maybe both, to the Finnish public. And that way, the Finnish public would know and would know actually how it feels to be a foreigner in Finland. And of course, it is extremely important to promote a positive image of foreigners and for a positive image of multiculturalism in the media, in different aspects of life, what multiculturalism could bring to Finland in general, and what it could bring to some specific fields in particular, especially in terms of employment. Fourth, strengthening the bond of common identity. It would be also beneficial, according to the findings of the workshops, that Finnish-speaking Finns and Swedish-speaking Finns would strengthen their bond and to strengthen their common heritage and common values, and maybe address any hidden underlying issues around that. And of course, integration issues should be equally addressed both for foreigners and for nationals as well. Fifth, facilitating intercultural communication. It would be also extremely important to implement intercultural communication as a subject in the Finnish educational system and to implement it as trainings in different workplaces. And that way, it would help to lessen cultural misunderstanding from people with various backgrounds. And for efficient communication, it is also important to use a common language for more inclusiveness. and to focus on commonalities rather than differences. 6, self-advancement of minorities. Now, of course, the social integration cannot always be one-sided. It's not like the government always has to do these things, but it would be extremely beneficial to give a push to it by minorities self-advancing themselves in the community, be part of a positive change through local initiative or projects in their communities. It would be also beneficial to work on constructive communication with the majority and to create environment to make their issues known about it. And of course, there are already many ethnic groups in Finland that already support each other, but other minorities should support each other more for a better integration. And lastly, more decision-making powers to people with disabilities. People with disabilities or different abilities should definitely have more opportunities and space to speak up about their own needs. And also, they should be well informed about their rights. And another extremely important point is that the general public should understand and should know how to efficiently communicate with people with disabilities instead of assuming what's right for them and what's not. Now we will tackle the institutional discrimination part. So once again, during the third workshop, we have mainly identified, I think, 9 main issues related to institutional discrimination. The first one is housing segregation, negative perceptions towards foreigners, discrimination on the job market based on foreign origins, insufficient civil protection for foreigners by the police, discrimination against foreigners in the health sector, difficulties for foreigners to benefit from financial services, unequal treatment in transportation services, unequal treatment in schools, and discrimination against people with disabilities in the context of the workplace. So apparently, according to the findings of the workshops, there is some kind of hidden segregation operating in Österbotten region. Foreigners feel like they are offered apartments with a bad reputation, and these neighborhoods are known to have a bad reputation, and some are offered apartments with poor maintenance, some apartments where normally Finnish people would normally live in, and these kind of apartments are usually left for foreigners, for drug and alcohol addicts, and for mentally ill people. And of course, if the foreigners want to have better options for themselves, for their families or children, of course they are left with no other choice but to pay a higher price, which they usually cannot afford. Second, negative perceptions towards foreigners. Also, foreigners have stated that they feel extremely discouraged to express their opinion and make their rightful demands in various contexts in the workplace or in like a housing complex. And it has been said that some people, some Finnish people, either insinuate or tell you directly that you are less entitled than nationals. And if you want this or that, then you should go back to your own country, these kind of things. And in case of conflict with the police, Finnish people are usually more favored than foreigners. Foreigners are not, seem like they are not trustworthy, and they are considered to be less credible than Finns. 3, discrimination on the job market based on foreign origins. This has been quite a hot topic. Like, many people have had a lot of things to say about it. And it seems that some employers they already know what kind of profile of people they want to work with, that besides the job advertisements already advertised for. And it also seems that the name of foreigners in Finland constitute an issue for them in terms of job seeking. And some Finnish people have even, they suggest to foreigners to say, to change their name if they want to have better chances in the job market. And also many foreigners feel like it's challenging for them to find a job that suits their profile, their skills, and their aspirations. And a specific problem regarding people with dual citizenships, like Finns who have a second citizenship based on maybe foreign backgrounds, they find it's extremely difficult to land management positions and leadership positions because of their dual citizenship. And then, of course, many employers have many stereotypes about how is that foreign person, how hardworking he or she is, and how lazy they are based on their background. Just on like an example, for example, they say that Asians are hardworking. This sounds like a good stereotype, but there are many other bad stereotypes about other ethnicities which constitute a big issue. And many foreigners feel like they are not given the chance to express themselves and to show their skills to the potential employer, and that is specifically when they are not even invited for an interview while they match the job requirements. And it also seems that EU and non-EU foreigners are treated differently in terms of employment and salary. Some non-EU citizens have been offered some jobs that are completely against the labor Finnish legislation. And another big problem is that it seems that foreign degrees are not seen as equivalent to Finnish degrees. And here there is a contradiction in the sense that the foreign degrees are accepted in the Finnish educational system, but they are not accepted in the job market. And fourth, insufficient civil protection for foreigners by the local authorities. Foreigners also seem that the police are not taking a strong stand when it comes to their security and issues. And the police tend to, of course, as I said before, they favor more Finns than foreigners, and they are more helpful toward Finns than foreigners. And in case of crime commitment, it seems that foreigners are judged less severely than Finnish people for the same crimes. Fifth, discrimination against foreigners in the health sector. One big issue that refugees in Finland suffer from is a lack of a social security number, and that entails that they do not have access to treatments in hospital just like anybody else. And maybe if foreigners or refugees want to speed up their process, if their health issue is very serious and they want to get a treatment as soon as possible, they are left with no other choice but to follow up with private hospitals, which they usually cannot afford. And even if they want to engage in that, there is no payment facilitations that could make that happen. Six, difficulties for foreigners to benefit from financial services. Now, we've had many testimonies in the workshops that there is many people from both EU foreigners and non-EU foreigners that they found it difficult to benefit from financial services, to open a bank account and just have basic financial services. And these kind of obstacles start even in the beginning, even before they become a regular clients. 7, unequal treatment in transportation services. Also, some foreigners have stated that sometimes when they want to book a taxi driver, the taxi drivers would refuse to take them and refuse to drive them to their destination because the call or the booking was not made in Finnish and Swedish and was made in English. 8, unequal treatment in schools. We've also had some foreigners or some people of a foreign background say that they have felt that their children are not getting an equal treatment just like their peers in school. And 9, discrimination against people with disabilities. We have heard that people with disabilities, either nationals or foreigners, are feeling completely left out of the job market in the Finnish society. And they cannot find decent jobs that fits their abilities, and even if they do, it's with an unhuman wage. And they also, even if they get the job, they also feel left out of decision-making processes and not needed while they want to contribute. And of course, in general, there is just not enough opportunities for them in the job market. In terms of solutions, we have mainly discussed roughly 7 main solutions for institutional discrimination. Improving communication in the housing system, improving cooperation between the different Finnish institutions, more fair and effective treatment from the police, more transparency and fair treatment in schools, facilitating administrative services in the health sector and expanding it to refugees, more inclusiveness for people with disabilities, and encouraging foreigners to engage in entrepreneurship. So in terms of improving communication and housing system, of course, the first thing that that the housing complex or administration would do is that they need to inform the tenants about all their rights and their responsibilities as part of the housing complex. And there is, of course, a need to have an efficient communication between different stakeholders in the housing complex. Communication between the housing administration, between the landlords, and between the tenants. And of course, it would be very beneficial if the housing companies would adopt a participatory approach where they engage the residents in their board meetings, in which the residents would contribute with meaningful solutions to their environment. Second, improving communication between the different Finnish institutions. There is a need for more cooperation between the academic institutions and other companies or organizations in the same field in order to fill the gap between the academic world and the job markets. Now, we know that this is already happening in many institutions in Finland, but it's not the case for all institutions. There is still a gap in many other fields, and graduates do feel left out once they graduate and disconnected from the job market. And also another thing is that the employment office needs to do more effort to recommend job opportunities that matches the skills and the aspirations of the job seekers. And of course, another thing is that the bank institutions need to improve their customer service and need to facilitate the process of basic financial services to foreigners regardless their country of origin. Once you are a foreigner legally residing in Finland, whether you are here on the grounds of studies or work, you have the right to benefit from financial services regardless of where you come from, just like anybody else. Third, more fair and effective treatment from the police. We have talked about the issue of cybersecurity, and there is definitely a need to create a service specialized in that in order for the police to protect its citizens from online harassments and threats. And the police need to make more effort to have a fair treatment for both Finnish people and for foreigners, both in terms of like what they offer and in terms of punishments and sentences as well. And it would be also beneficial if there is an internal code of conduct destined to the police staff that would show them how to behave and how to support people from different cultural backgrounds. Fourth, more transparency and fair treatment in schools. There has been discussions that there is a need for anonymous complaints in schools, and they need to be made possible, and that way, if the staff receives the anonymous complaints, then they would know where it come from. Did it come from like people from a foreign background or from Finnish people, and that way their complaints are taken seriously and are treated on an equal level. And there is a need for transparent communication and more detailed explanations from the staff of the schools to the people of a foreign background and newcomers about how the school system works. It should be clear from the beginning, and that way there is no misunderstandings during the school year. And it would be extremely important that that the administrative staff and the teachers would know how to behave and how to treat pupils from various cultural backgrounds. Fifth, facilitating administrative services in the health sector and expanding it to refugees. Now, one solution for the foreigners in this sector would be to create for them a temporary registration. This registration would enable them to have access to health services just like anybody else. And there is, of course, a need to facilitate payment services for anyone, for nationals and for foreigners. And there is a need to improve communication between the different physicians and practitioners, between cities and villages in order to have a smoother exchange of records, and that would, of course, facilitate their treatment process. And it would be also good to be inspired of other practices in countries that are like Finland, such as the UK. More inclusiveness for people with disabilities. As I mentioned before, there is a need for more work opportunities that suits the abilities of this group, and more importantly, with a decent human wage. And there is also the need for employers to work more on how to delegate tasks to this group of people so that they feel more included and they feel like they contribute in their work environment. And seven, encouraging foreigners to engage in entrepreneurship. Now, entrepreneurship could be a brilliant idea and a brilliant alternative to unemployment, and that way it would enable foreigners to not still wait for job opportunities, but to rather develop themselves and to grow further in the field of expertise as part of the Finnish society to benefit themselves, but also their environments. And the foreigners need to know that. They need to know that they are backed up by the government, and the government is ready to support them if they want to make their own business. Oh, so that was it. So I hope that what has been mentioned was reflecting your ideas and your concerns and your suggestions. And if not, we can still discuss it, and there is still room for improvement. And we can do that maybe after the coffee break. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, guys, it starts to look that everybody's getting back. I know some of you had to go, so that's okay. And some of you are back, looking a little bit tired, but still happy, so that's good. So we have about 45 minutes left, and those minutes we thought of using for a little bit deeper discussion on the things that has been said by Emmanuel before, and more focused to the handbook itself, so the things that Sarah has been talking about. To start with, we would like to know whether you have any questions and comments to anything what Sahara has been talking about, so we can start from there.
And if you want to recall, I can always go back here.
Yeah, exactly. It was so a lot of information, so. Mm. Looks like everything is crystal clear. Okay. Oh, there's one question.
So, to start, thank you for the presentation, Sarah. And I want to commend the group, PENS. This is really great job that you've done, and I'm surprised that I've not had any of the invitation or seen it anywhere. So maybe that's where to start, that you should advertise your activities more. I think this is very important work you're doing, and people should get to know what you're doing. And coming back to the book, I'm wondering one thing, this is more of a comment. You have a lot of suggestions in there, very important ones, but I did not see anyone or anywhere where you say there will be some training, training for this group when you talk about the police and other institutions, including the school. I did not see training there. Most of these things that you're talking about are very delicate, crucial matters that do not just happen. Talking about change with people reading books and stuff, they need experiential activities or something that would transform something in their mind. So I'm wondering if you would think about something like that in the future going forward. If you intend to do that, that would be great. And just so I feel like my question is this project ending now, or you have future plans to do more? Because I still think at this point where you've got into, you have a set of recommendations, things to do, but the question for you is how? These are just recommendations. So if you take each of the recommendations, how would it be done? That is not captured in this book, for example, and that is important for society. The police would read, but they wouldn't know how, and that's the big problem we have. People don't know how to do it. So I hope you get funding and can move on this work to how do we really help people find housing? How do we really help the Finns who are really struggling, the Swedish and these kind of things, practical things to do. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So, so exactly all the things that you mentioned. So, as we said in the very beginning, when in the opening, that we started with the project, and already in the end of 2018, this came up, from the issues that are already present in Österbotten region. So, so then the first thoughts were what can we do about it? And it was just really a start of it. So we started with the workshops by identifying the problems, identifying the issues. Then it continued on, finding the solutions that also came from the people itself. Now the next step is to put the handbook together where we have the problems, where we have the issues. And so 2020 we dedicate for the dissemination of the results. So again, getting all together these organizations and institutions that already were with us, and so expanding it more, exactly as you said, we are not out there, it's like we're such a new organization, so not so many knew about it, but little by little we are going forward. And when it comes to, you've been talking about, we have a lot of solutions, we have problems, we have solutions, and that was the aim of this handbook. And so the next year we would like to disseminate, and then afterwards, as you said already, we would love to find people who can work with us, so we can actually go into interventions. What can we do here within the community, so to actually practically apply this? So thank you for reminding us, because it just disappears sometimes, and as you say, it's like funding and all of that, and life happens. But at least this is what is the plan, and we already have here some people from the institutions that have been supporting our work. So if you have any ideas, if you are thinking that you have time and you're willing to work with us in the future to disseminate the handbook, as well as to form the groups that we can actually do interventions of the results practically, that would be great. Sometimes it's really difficult to do everything on your own. You get lonely and you're not heard. And so we are very thankful that people came here and came in springtime during the workshops, because all what Sarah has been presenting is, it's coming from the people. And what is not here, one thing that is really worrying is that people don't want to talk about it. They're either afraid, or mostly they are afraid. There's such a huge fear to tell your own experiences. Doesn't matter what kind of background you have. And that's scary, that we cannot open up to our peers, not even talking about strangers. But I guess starting to talk about things little by little, it kind of opens up more space. Thank you.
Okay, first, thank you so much, Sahar, for the presentation. It was really informative and very enlightening. I have two questions. The first one, is there any history of incidents done by foreigners like that motivated Finnish people to take this attitude, or is it just a stereotyping? And the second one, I hear that you are going to publish like this findings and results to one of the municipality, maybe. So do you have like an exact data? I think it's very hard, but I think it will be more comprehensive to add like data to this results. Thank you.
So thank you very much for your questions. In terms of the first question that tackles like the history of incidents, I think there are various factors that contribute to this kind of behavior and kind of discrimination. There are factors of like, the in-groups and the out-groups, like the Finnish environment and how other people from various backgrounds came to the Finnish environment for economic reasons, for like conflict reasons, for many other reasons, for just like globalization. So that clash of like new culture coming from another culture does, of course, create some sort of misunderstanding, and that is like mostly enhanced by the media and everything. So I would say that there are many factors. There is like the specific incident that happened and that has been reported as examples during the workshops, and there is like general things that has to do with what the media displays, for example. So I would say many factors contribute to that.
Or I can add to that well, let's say that when there is an incident happens, rather by a foreigner or by a Finnish citizen, maybe for people it is easier to remember the foreigner who has done that. So it stays in the minds, and maybe it's also easier to blame, because they just can blame They know that they are the majority, and they can just blame it to the foreigners. And about the data, your second question. Well, speaking about Österbotten, we don't have enough data to support it. We have from all over Finland some data that we would like to add in the handbook, but Finland has been very slow receiving country of immigrants compared to the other EU countries. So the percentage of immigrants are still very, very less here, and that's why there haven't been also done much research. But there have been research from Sweden, for example, that might give some insight to the research here. That's I could say.
And just to add to this, that the scope of this handbook was to identify the problems by keeping a workshop and talking with people, so they share their opinions. Like, that was the research that we have used for this purpose. But definitely there is like much more, place for improvements for other kind of handbooks and how to move on forward with this.
Talking about data, would you add information from the seminars you've been holding? Would that be used as a data in this book, or is all descriptive? You don't back it with like, this seminar we had this data, we analyzed what participants said, and this is what they were saying. I see that from your report. That is exactly, but for me that is data. If you add how many people were there and how many said this, percentage that said this, and that is already data. Yeah. And a question is this book going to be free, or people will have to buy? Or is it open access? How do you intend to?
Yeah, so I'm just going to start with the second. This handbook, the manual, whatever you want to call it, is going to be published as a PDF format, first of all, and I think that's going to be done, we promise by the end of the year. I think it's going to be done even sooner, and it's going to be available on Center for Pin's webpage, and anybody who wants to, they can, freely download it and share it, and we ourselves are going to send to different kind of institutions, organizations, to the City Hall, that they can use it. That's the meaning, freely available, and if there will be funding for that, so we would love to, print it out and have it as a hard copy, or, just a printed version. So that's a little dream we have, and translated to Finnish and Swedish, that's another dream we have. So let's see, but to start with, English version in PDF format, and I think that's it's quite nice step forward. Back to the data thing. So to organize these workshops, it was more, it was not about collecting the data and having the numbers. It's about creating space for the people, to come together and share the experiences. And for this presentation, we have been discussing this for quite a long time. Should we mention who were participants? The numbers, the backgrounds. This is what we do in science. We have to know. And then in the end, we decided that, well, this was about, a safe place. So we want to keep that promise, and a safe place to share. And I think that's what has been happening. And here we have these points that came, from the participants. And so it happened that, we were a lot of with foreign backgrounds, so discussion went to the foreign, to the immigrant population. However, we are happy that it came, people that are discriminated due to other kind of reasons. So we have a little bit of that too. So again, another handbook that we are planning could go, to explore something more.
Then I would quickly add that, we are going to have the Minority Research Conference here next year in May. So it will be a good thing to have a table there where you display a few and people will get to see it.
Thank you. Yes.
That would be a nice way to promote your work, because I think it's important. And quickly, coming back to the question about history, about people, I don't know about Österbotten because I'm new here, barely 2 years, but where I lived in Finland called Åbo, some 5 hours drive from here, I learned that part of the discrimination against specifically black people has a history. The first blacks to come to Finland were the Somalis. And they were settled, like in settlement, special place where they were all, and the society intended to integrate, train them to speak the language, then they are brought into mainstream. And these guys broke away. They just moved out of this place, and it was a scandal. You know, Finland, how they are used to regulations and order and following rules. So for them, it was the first ever time that people would just move out and then live in main town, and it was a huge scandal for them. And this prejudice about what we're talking about, not following rules, breaking order, doing their own thing, not interested in our culture, started from there. And so I don't know here, but in the city, it's a huge thing. People talk a lot about it. And that experience has informed how subsequently the laws and how they've treated people coming from these regions. So just wanted to share that with you. Yeah.
Hi, I think I want to ask or more elaborate clarification to Dr. Emmanuel about what you say about the Somalian when they came in Finland as the first settlers, maybe as an immigrants or refugees. You were saying that they are not like really fully integrated, maybe, or is it do you mean is it the resistance to somewhat? Because I was thinking, is it also a part of like when you feel that your identity is threatened? Because at first you have to accept, when you came here, you have to accept you have already your identity, right? And then when you come to a country, you just have to accept all of it, because or else I will not belong. Just, is it like, my question is like, because maybe people feel that so they should belong, so they have to change everything from even the way they think, where they already they're adults when they come here. So can you say about something?
Few thoughts.
Yeah, if you have thought.
Emmanuel, maybe would you like to come here? You're being already a presenter, so you can stand with us, you know.
Happy here if you don't mind. So I'm happy if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So to your question, I can't speak directly because I was also told this. So I have not read so much, so I'm very careful, cautiously what I know. But you're right. It might have been, we can assume that was a factor, but let me make it clear that for Finland, it wasn't a bad intention. It was a good plan to settle them, to make them part of society. Integration, people have different integration policies, and I think, I don't know specifically what they had in mind, but it might appear that it was just like the French thing, you come, you become one of assimilation. And again, I wouldn't also go into discussing why and how and when these Somalis broke the rule, but the understanding was that people, they just left these settlements. If you go to Åbo, there are still places where we have immigrants living. One of them has this international school there, and in this region, you have about 70% of the population being Somalis and other people. So they are still in these enclaves, but the fact that they left this settlement broke like the whole program for how to integrate them. So it was virtually like everything was stopped. and you know how this society functions. So it's taken a whole lot of years for people to really think about how do we handle that. So I don't know specific reasons why they revolted or why they left, but they know why. But you're right. It could be questions about identity and not feeling good, and because most of them are also Muslims, and that was a key question to Finland. This is a Lutheran state. Islam has been a big question for them. So it was a multiple layer thing, and we can discuss all of that. So everything contributed to this.
Yeah, another thing that comes to my mind is when you say about integration, to which degree of integration are we talking in here? I mean, is it only about talking the language so I can get a work practically? And example, if I'm married to a Finnish man and I came from other country, to what extent should a person that comes from other country to feel that she is or he is integrated, to what degree?
It's a two-way thing. Usually, let's remember, states have their program. They have a clear program that if you come as a foreigner, this is how we want you to integrate. That is outside our power. We can change that. And Finland has its own. On the other hand, we also have our way of understanding and how to keep our identity. That's why most researchers will say the best way to integrate is the two-way. This is Finland, this is how we do things, but this is what you bring, and we can accept up to this amount of your religion, your this, your plus that. So this is the perfect way of integration, but it's not the optimal, again. So integration questions are very challenging, it's very personal. But again, how we understand it is a two-way affair and a half-way affair. So you move, you change something, the society, host society also change something so that we can all live together. And that's important.
Is that the way of saying it's more the tolerance on both parts?
Because I don't like the word being tolerant because it doesn't demonstrate true multicultural societies and living together in harmony. To be tolerant as multicultural means that I would tolerate, I would try to live with you. We have to accommodate. I prefer to use accommodation. So we accommodate. That means I'm Ghanaian, I have multiple identities, but I can't live exactly that way. I can't cook Ghanaian food here. There's no way. So I will have to learn to eat Finnish food. That is an accommodation. At the same time, Finns have to learn that I can eat all the food, including the Christmas food, so they pardon me when I can go that far. That is accommodation. That is the perfect way. But I don't know if societies can reach this. That's a question that no one can.
And since we are going, a little bit from discrimination to a bigger picture on social integration, and that's the beginning of the handbook, that says that the main goal was, to explore the discrimination issues, so we can, facilitate the social integration. And on social integration, it has a lot of different definitions. We can go with this to so many different directions. And as we see it, as we view it, the main idea is that each individual in a society, can live at his highest potential, wealthy and healthy in the community where that person is, despite the individual background, whatever it has to do with the culture, with ability, with different orientations. So, that's so much to explore in there. And we can go on and on with it. And I guess it's going back to the individual, leaving, the culture away, leaving the values, the norms away, and what is left there and how can we function together. We are also different. At the same time, we are part of the same community. So that's a challenge, and that's nothing new. That's been for centuries the same topic that we're discussing today. And small things, small aspects to re-evaluate and then re-evaluate again who we are as a society. why discrimination is still there. You know, as you have been saying in your presentation, Emmanuel, that we are wired already in our brains to stereotype and then discriminate. The societal norms that you mentioned, it is in a society that, you know, white, black, this and that. So that's actually a good moral question. Where have we come as a society? So from very philosophical to the very practical ideas. But thank you, Marianne, for actually bringing this up, because it's a part of the handbook too.
I have a question, Sarah, about your presentation. I enjoyed that finding that Finns feel that other Finns marginalize or oppress them because they side with foreigners, for example, marriage and things. I was wondering, I just want to know more because it's exciting for me, new thing. I've never thought about it, honestly. I didn't think Finns will face that. So it was new, and I think it's an interesting perspective to explore, maybe in the future, this dimension. Can you tell me a bit how often did you hear this, and how concerned, and how?
We can go back to the slide. That's.
Yeah, so regarding this question, we've had testimonies during the workshop about this kind of discrimination, like the in-group discrimination, Finns against Finns. Like I've mentioned that some of them feel discriminated because they married a foreigner, and others feel like because they are sympathetic towards certain groups of a certain background, they feel discriminated by Finnish people because of that, because they feel like they generalize this idea that this whole group is wrong. Like the idea of the presence of this group in the community is wrong, so they generalize instead of like focusing on like specific cases, and like one person does not represent the whole population. They feel like because you are supporting this kind of group, then you are like this kind of job. This is wrong. This is like some sort of treason. Like why would you support these people who are doing these kind of things, which is not reflecting the reality, which is just like few cases that are being generalized. So this is the kind of thought that we've had during the workshop.
And to add to that, there was also a name called, like a name calling thing for in Finnish, I don't remember it now, for those people who are too tolerant.
Yeah, does anybody remember? Because that was a Swedish word.
Yes. Yeah.
So just imagine that it's actually a word for that kind of person who is, tolerant towards the foreign population in Finland. Wow.
A word that is made up, or is actually an existing vocabulary?
I think it's more on like we discussed, like it's more like Österbotten region. This place has like two languages, more likely. But maybe in other parts of Finland, it would not be so much because it's only more really Finnish.
I'm not sure about its origin.
I don't know myself also the origin of the word, but if we have a native speaker here that could enlighten us. Yes?
Okay, I think these days it's used all over. So not just Österbotten, it might have been even in use. Suvakki. Yeah, and usually I think the usage is like you say somebody in a negative way. Yeah. Exactly that. Instead of saying that you are tolerant, you say that you are suvakki, so that you feel bad about doing something yourself. That is kind of the exclusion, that you socialize with certain group of people and then they call you names and you feel bad about it. Like you said, that one person doesn't represent the whole group of people.
Hi, I'm representing here MIRA, our group, it is International Society. And another thing, it is ETNO. You maybe remember it. What is ETNO? I tell you, it is Advisory Board of Ethnic Relationship here in Finland and Ministry of Justice. And what about it? I told you once, girls, when we had sessions, that you maybe are interested also to send your materials there. And then we have our last session in December. I don't remember, was it 10th of December? If you have already time to send something there, could be nice. Or even someone of yours can come and tell about that. It could be extremely interesting for people who are working with immigrants and refugees. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have noted that out.
Any more questions, comments regarding the content of the handbook, anything what Sahar has been telling? Or I'm just going to go, yes, would you like a microphone?
Hello, yes. So I'm wondering, there's like, for me, it looks like there's a red line between so many issues here. It's like about what you took up here was these marrying foreigners, for example, and you even have words for it. And all these problems here is like coming from like group identification. So for me, it's like if you have more empowered individuals, like to be strong and think for themselves instead of under a spell of a group, it's like much more powerful to empower an individual to be strong. The same thing is for discrimination, like disabled people. So I see a lot. For myself, I like have a problem with my eyes, had for all my life. And as long as I've been like ashamed of it and afraid of my own, like being disabled, I felt discriminated because the closest one who maybe knew, it's like, how can they treat me like this? And it's like when I was open about it and became stronger and accepted my, as I see it now, a challenge instead of disability, and I dare to ask for help and a helping hand. I dare to go with my white cane on the street. It's like people are helpful. Before they were not, because how could they know? So I think the red line, what I want to say is like by being strong yourself, with yourself, if you are disabled or not, if you're a foreigner or not, it doesn't matter. It's just like be strong and not be afraid of everything. Don't be the victim. Just empower people. That's I think it's a very good solution for many things we see here. Same is with police and authorities and stuff. It's like they are also a group of people. They also are under a roof, under the same house as others. So maybe just by making them stronger as individuals and individual training, for example. You talked about examples. Group training is maybe not the solution. Maybe individual training to make them stronger could be a nice way of empowering everyone, because deep down we are all good. So that's it.
Thank you for sharing that, and I think that's an excellent, solution to our societal as well as institutional issues that Saha had in her presentation, at empowering individuals. So that individual, it can be strong and empowered physically, emotionally, as well as spiritually. So I think that goes for whatever background of each individual and for whatever discrimination one might feel. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I think what you have said goes in line with the suggestion that there are things that society can do, but it is also important to self-advance oneself. And we've talked about that during the minorities. Minorities need to be more assertive, and it is the first step that goes in the advancement of individuals. And I think it is extremely important for your suggestions of personal training. Is it some kind of coaching you meant? Yeah. So I think that would be. We can add that as well. Thank you.
Yes, there was.
Okay. Like this information on these seminars that has been done, and a handbook is being prepared to be sent out. Is there like a plan to make this handbook be the awareness that there's such a kind of material out there? Because from your statement is that it's going to be published in the website for PINs, and how much people are aware of that PIN exists and are now able to now go and access that handbook. Because if it just remains in PIN's website, then probably you wouldn't reach so many people. So what's the plan of making this handbook and the effort that has been put so far available to the general public, at least in the Österbotten region that this book handles or addresses? Thanks.
Thank you very much for your question. I can answer to that so that we will put it on the website, but we also have Facebook and Instagram, and we will publish it there too. And when we are sending this handbook to the organizations, to the municipality of Vasa also, what we can do is we can encourage them to share it, because it can be copied and shared. So that is that is an option that we will give it to people. If they want to spread the word, then they can. But for the other marketing ideas, I think we need funding also, and we can do it to some extent with our own resources. But we can ensure you that we will do as much as we can.
And that's why it's so important that you guys do it together with us. So share it and spread it, and that's, I think that's an idea. I think so many things, whatever we do, not only we, many organizations, here within the area, that many events, many publications, many this. But so if we are not like doing it together, if we are not sharing, so it stays only in our group here. So we made a seminar, a couple of workshops, got the funding, had a nice cup of coffee with some sandwiches. Thank you, bye, it's over. And then we're gonna work a couple of more months, really hard, putting this together, in our free time, and then it's like nobody really cares. So it's the responsibility, yes, starts with you. So it's like me responsible for this to happen, and so each of us, if you really want to change. And as Ishik has mentioned, we already have an email list that we kind of communicate with other organizations and institutions. Not enough though, really. But it's a start, and starting to be a little bit more active in social media, which is again not enough. It's like it has to come from the people to the people. So if you guys have any suggestions, and thank you, already some of you asked, if we want to participate there and there. So that's a great start. So let's spread the word. Let's move forward with this. If there is one more question, we have time. Yes.
I try to keep it simple and not to take over time. I think this question or thought already came when Emmanuel was in the front speaking, but I couldn't quite form the question. But the thought went around when you had one slide about a certain nation and its certain president that wasn't named, but we probably know who it is. And also the opinions he said about women and Mexicans and others, and using these scare tactics. The president saying this, how can he, and nobody is in, say, other countries taking an opinion on this. And this is also kind of if you think about personally, that then if you don't associate with these other groups, it's kind of that it's out of your own strength or the lack of it that you cannot form your own opinion. This is a very easy way to attack somebody. And then have this kind of, in Finland they say, this is a very stupid saying, that the foreigners come, this is from men's point of view. They come, they steal our work, they steal our women. So this is kind of a very old that is saying that is always brought up. And then you think about that, okay, which sort of person is saying this thing? So these are the cheap tricks of using words to attack somebody instead of having this intelligent discussion and really going into the issues. And this is the same thing going on in Finland, as you said, that people are afraid to voice their opinions. If, let's say, me, as a native Finnish person, would, let's say, criticize or say something about foreigners, so then what am I? So you put a label on me that I'm a bigot. Instead, if I say that, okay, how about these foreigners? And, no matter if they are Muslim, Christian, whatever, what their color is, and I lighten let's say, in a positive way, then I'm the Suvaki. So there's no winning in this discussion. And I don't know, this is one of the things that something would need to happen in Finland, at least, that you could have a real conversation on things instead of always having this stamp, putting, okay, your opinion is this, so you must be just like this, and then you are swiped under the table, your opinion doesn't matter. So maybe this was more of an opinion than a question, really, but that's how I feel like that this discussion is hard to get anywhere because of the different labels that are put up on you. Thank you. Not too long, I hope.
Yeah, I think that this could easily go to one of the solutions, real conversations, discussions that actually, you listen to people, because, it's so easy to attack those people, and we all have our problems, things happen every day, and it's so easy to blame somebody else for whatever is happening to us. So rarely we actually take responsibility and look, into ourselves and see whether we can change anything or do something, not to end up in the situation. But yeah, all in all, real discussions, both two-way communication and actually, with a truly openly listening to one another, without as less stereotyping and prejudice. And Emmanuel already shared before some inputs, how can we avoid it? So it's a hard work, and it's, in the end, it's nothing new. It's nothing country or place specific. This happens everywhere. Maybe we have here, our cultural or community examples. However, I think this kind of problems, what we're talking about, is quite universal. So wherever you're coming from, wherever, you grew up, what kind of values you got from home, from schools and stuff like that. It's something that we all commonly share, and it's easy to have an opinion about one another. But once you sit down, when you go to the concert, as Emmanuel said, you don't look who is next to you, you just dance to the music because you love the artist. But once we start, sitting here already now and talking about discrimination, we already discriminating those people. So it's something to think about. And but I think today we had done a good job, actually coming here tired after work, after school, putting our time, our effort to all of this. So for that, we are really, really thankful, guys. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate that. And thank you for all the input you have put before and now, So just to move on forward, work together, and hopefully create a little bit better future, for us here in Österbotten. Yeah. So thank you for that. And before you clap,
I also would like to add few things. So we would like to thank for our collaborators who have made this happen to me. So we would like to thank ETNO i Österbotten, ELY-keskus, for their financial support for this seminar. We would like to thank Peace Program of Akademi for their collaboration, and then we would like to thank a bigger heart project. We see you Kupanlogojede, Mira House and Närpes Fredsförening. Yeah. Thank you very much.
And one last is the our presentations are being recorded and they would be published on our YouTube channel, and those will be also announced on our social media channels. So keep in touch. Thank you.
Yeah, that's one of the ways, to share it, to spread the word about the handbook, about the actual happening itself. So thank you so very much. Take care now of yourselves. Be good to each other, be good to you. And I think we're going to meet again soon for another seminar next year. Getting exciting, right? Thank you so much. Take care and bye.